Hello, everybody. I'm with Eric Kelso. Hopefully, I've said that correctly. I got that wrong in
Yeah, Eric
the
Kelso.
I got that wrong
Yeah.
in the Walter interview, and I was really embarrassed. Because I had brought you up. I was like, "Do you know him?" Because I'd made the arrangement. I was like, "Oh yeah, this is how to say it." So it was
Uh-huh.
one of those things which I was like, "Okay, let me get it right with the actual guy behind it."
Well, I
Um,
thank Walter for correcting you.
yeah. So, I mean, you've been in multiple different series. I mean, I've mentioned Dino Stalker in emails, and you're also in Shenmue. I mean, with all these all-star roles behind, on your pages and all these other things, is there any of them that you see as being underappreciated in any way, or anyone that has kind of gone under
Um,
people's radars that you enjoyed kind of doing?
I don't really play the games myself, so I'm not really sure exactly
Hmm.
how popular a lot of them are. Um, I know usually the biggest ones I get asked about are like Shenmue,
Yep.
where I was Guizan and Fukusan and Ren, and Virtua Fighter, I
Hmm.
was Jackie Bryant, and Tekken, I'm Paul Phoenix, and those are kind of the big ones. A lot
Yeah.
of them. F Zero, I'm Captain Falcon,
Yep.
and so a lot of those are the major ones. Some of the minor ones I don't hear as much about from other people, but I don't really know what's appreciated or not.
Hmm.
Um, uh, One thing that I was just talking about at a GameCon recently, we don't always get paid for the sequels, so
Hmm.
I feel like that's a little bit underappreciated.
Yeah.
Um, in 1996, I did Jackie Bryant in Virtua Fighter 3
Hmm.
and did it all the way through all the Virtua Fighters up until now. And which included with all of the different, shoot offs and like Sega Superstars
Yep.
and Virtua Quest and things like that. Um, was a total of 9 games. And I only got paid for one.
Oh wow.
So uh, some companies are good about, I just did this like fit boxing
Hmm.
thing. I just recently recorded a little bit for, and they want to use some more. They paid me a lot
Hmm.
to reuse the old voices in the new version and
Yep.
everything. And but with Sega and the Virtua Fighter, they just paid us for the one time in
Hmm.
96, and they're still using it today, 25 years later, and don't pay us a dime because it's the same lines.
Hmm.
We're not recording again. They're reusing the same exact lines that were used in the first game.
Yeah, I've
They
heard
just
that a couple
changed,
of times with different people.
yeah, they just changed the technology and it looks
Hmm.
better and the
Yeah,
voices
definitely.
sound better. But some it depends on what kind of contract you have and things. So um, one that I was really hard for me to do that I've never been able to find or anywhere
Hmm.
is Planet of the Apes. And the original Planet of the Apes series from like the late 60s, early 70s were like some of my favorite films.
Yeah.
I have Blu-ray of the first one. I watch it at least once or twice every year. Um, the remakes I didn't like so much, but they did a video game after the remake, after the new versions came out
Hmm.
of that movie in the 90s, I guess, probably early 2000s. I guess 2000s. But um, I did every voice in the whole game, basically. I did a lot of the like soldiers and generals
Yeah.
and civilians and things like that. And I did every primate besides the humans. Also, I did all the apes and the chimpanzees and
Hmm.
gorillas and orangutans and stuff. And it was a workout. I was exhausted
Yeah, I would
because I have
imagine that.
and I have
Yeah.
to you know like this. I was coughing and sweating and Yeah, for hours and hours until I just couldn't speak.
Hmm.
And I never got any appreciation for that one. Sorry, that hit me harder than I thought.
Yeah, I can't even see. Wait, so was that a game or like a voiceover for?
It was a video game called Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, it doesn't say anywhere that you're in anything like that. So that's, I guess that's
Yeah.
something that a discovery to be made, I guess.
So research that, check that out. I gotta
Yeah,
still
I
check
definitely
that out
will.
as well and see. But
Yeah,
that was one I thought would be bigger, but it
yeah,
never hit.
definitely, definitely. And I guess you've kind of touched on this a little bit. I was going to say, with games like Dino Stalker, what was the development like? Or you can kind of say overall and kind of general stuff from the time. This would have been, I think Dino Stalker came out, since I know sometimes, yeah, 2002. So, I mean, stuff around then. Like, what was the development like back around, that kind of
Yeah, I
period?
was Lieutenant Mike Wired.
Yep.
Um, in Japan, they call it Dino Crisis 2. Yes. Um, that was interesting. Uh, yeah, it was my first time to do a
Hmm.
full body motion capture.
Yeah.
And so that was more than just voice acting,
Hmm.
which I did in the studio later, but just it's also, when you watch it, that's me running around.
Oh, I'm actually
And
surprised. I went through that not knowing that actually.
yeah. So I was wearing a full like wetsuit with the little balls on it
Yeah.
and on a big stage with like 50 cameras all around.
Well, it must have been
You see?
primitive back then, so it's the technology, so it wouldn't have been
There
what
were
it like
just these,
today,
there's
yeah.
just these cameras, boop, 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 and the balls, and the little lasers from the cameras, I guess, would reflect off the balls,
Yep.
and then on the screen, you see on the computer is like a stick figure
Hmm.
moving, and boy, that was a long day, and I did two of those. I did another one of those for firefighter,
Hmm.
and but that was the first one, and it was really fun. It was a hell of a workout, but it was really fun because it's the first time I've done anything like that. And it was kind of this new technology, and so that was cool. And I got to like, I had guns. I was like shooting, and they're like,
Yep.
okay, the dinosaur is about 10 feet up and about 20 feet back, and they hold up a tennis ball on a pole or something.
Yeah.
And I got to like have guns, and so that
Hmm.
was really fun. I like that one, and I love dinosaurs, so that was great.
Yeah, have you ever seen gameplay from those type of games? Or have you ever like, because I mean, you're a pretty predominant face in a lot of different areas. I would presume that you've seen like a lot of this gameplay, at least for some of the more major roles.
I've seen. Well, if I want to see it, I just look on YouTube,
Yeah.
and
But
then I
yeah.
can see. I can
But
see. I
have
don't
you
play.
like looked at like full playthroughs of it, or have you like, is that something that
No,
interests
just
you, or is it more just you just going into the studio having a little bit of fun and then doing it that way? Okay.
I found that probably 90% of game voice actors
Yep.
don't play video games.
Yep.
Um, and so I've never actually held a controller like this before in my life.
Well.
Uh, I've in high school,
Hmm.
I at the pizza parlor or something,
Yeah.
I would I'd play like asteroids,
Hmm.
invade Space Invaders, something like that.
Yeah.
And I
Do
think
you? Yeah.
I Pac-Man
It's
once.
yeah. It's one of those things,
I'm 60, so
yeah.
I missed the whole kind of golden age of video games. I was there at the birth. It was like
Yeah.
Model T when I came out, and so it just wasn't as interesting.
Yeah, I always
And
find it
I
unique to talk to people that are more veterans in the industry because you guys have way different opinions on a whole lot of things than because I've talked to I'm really good friends with one that he's only in some more modern roles now and he's got a 180 perspective on a lot of stuff that even like Walter talked about and some other people. So I'm really interested to just hear that's why I try to get the range of different people
huh,
to try to contact because it's it's entirely different because he goes through and then whenever he gets roles and finally gets told them after like the initial scripts and stuff and he gets approved, he's just like, holy crap, I'm actually going to be like in this franchise that I'm used to or that kind of stuff. Well, I think you guys don't get the beauty of either you don't play games or even
Yeah,
if or
I
even
don't
if you
think we
guys
enjoy
did,
it
there
as
was
much.
so many emerging franchises that I don't think anyone could really see if anything was going to like blow up or not.
We didn't. We had no idea,
Yeah.
especially if you get in it at the the base of it. Um, you don't know it's going to be a hit or
Yeah.
not. It was all new at the time. When I did Virtua Fighter with Yu Suzuki,
Hmm.
um, the engine that he used on that was like completely new. No one
Hmm.
had ever had 3D video games before.
Yeah.
And so a lot of it is constantly changing. So we don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, I've always been into like I call it retro gaming. I really hate it because some of the stuff from my childhood. So I'm 19 now. So some of the stuff from my childhood is considered retro. So it's starting to hurt a little bit. But yeah. But I've always been interested in a lot of the older stuff than the newer stuff. That's why I'm here at the moment. So I mean, it's one of
Yeah,
those things in which
I love the old stuff.
yeah,
I like
I try
old
to go through
movies.
the generations. Yeah, I try to go through the generations, and it's one of those things in which when you hit the PlayStation 2, which a lot of the was around the era, I guess, when a lot of the games you voiced in, at least the major roles that people know you for, around that era, it's such a beautiful time of exploration and just people trying new things and getting out there. I feel like
Yeah,
the voice acting really turned from hey, there's just a bunch of guys outside. Let's just because for some roles in like the 90s and stuff that they would just grab people off the street and just plop them in front of a studio and then it would come out horribly. And then some other games actually were like, let's try to get these people in which we know that they're good. Let's try to put them in front of a camera, like stone studio and see what they can do. It was one of those stages in which there was a real big change between that initial perspective on it. And I feel like you're kind of one of the prime examples of, oh, hey, let's get a good guy in to start to do a lot of the stuff. But also because I feel like it's unique talking to people in Japan during that time. Because I feel like you guys had a very unique experience with being because I heard that there wasn't a lot of English speakers. Well, there was a lot, but not as much as you could probably find in like the US at the time. There's kind of a limited
well,
crowd.
there are a lot of people doing voice work now in Japan,
Yeah.
but in 1990, you know, like 10.
Yeah.
There were 10 guys and 10 girls doing the whole country.
Hmm.
And so work was great, man. Just making tons of money and working, a couple recordings every day. Every day I had like 2 or 3 recordings. It was amazing.
Yeah, there was one guy that keeps getting brought up in that early period. His name's Michael G Gwynn, Guinn.
Michael G. Yeah, Michael G
Yeah.
is a good buddy of mine.
Everyone
Michael and Michael
yeah.
and G, and he was one of my best friends. We
Yeah,
used to hang out and party together.
he gets thrown around because a lot of the stuff that he was originally in never got credited, and that's different from the conversation we had before. He was done for that, but even back then, the culture of like he just got thrown into a bunch of different roles. He said when he was on YouTube, like 4 years ago, he replied to a random video of someone like collecting all his roles and doing a thing together, and he was like the nicest guy online from what I saw. And he,
Michael G. Michael Gwynn is his
yeah,
name, Guinn, but everybody just calls him Michael G.
yeah,
And he's back in Santa Barbara now. We actually went to UC Santa Barbara at the
hmm.
same time.
Yeah. He said he
And
moved.
I remember actually, we never knew each other in university. We
Yeah,
met in Tokyo. But I do remember we were kind of traced back to where were you? Did we ever cross
yeah,
paths or
yeah.
something? I used to work at the pub on campus,
Hmm.
and he would come down there and drink and stuff. But
Yeah.
I don't remember him from that. But then he said he worked at the information desk in the USAN
Hmm.
University Center. The pub was on the first floor. Excuse me. The information counter was on the second floor, and he worked
Yeah.
there. I remember once asking him for like a schedule of classes or something.
Yeah.
So we did actually speak once in like 1985.
Yeah, I had
So
this I had so of course I'm a lot younger, but I recently went to university this year
mhm.
in Sydney, Australia, and I had a God, I it was the most strange thing ever. I left primary school at like year 4, I think it was. It was quite young because I moved to a private school and I'd basically forgotten everybody. But when I came into uni earlier this year, I just randomly saw sitting like 2 seats away from me this guy like I had met when I was incredibly young. I was like, oh yeah, you from like this and this. He was like, oh yeah, I remember you. It was one of those situations of just like, you know, of course yours is a lot more of a coincidence because two different completely different areas, but I mean it's
Right.
one of those things in which I feel like there's
It
also a part
happens.
of like destiny that comes into play when someone just randomly appears again for whatever reason. It's one of those really weird things which sometimes does happen. I hear all these stories and it's always fun to hear about them.
Yeah. And at that, like you said, at that time, there weren't many people doing it in
Yeah.
Japan. And we all knew each other.
Hmm.
We'd sometimes hang out, but I like to separate my work and my private life. I don't really hang out with any voice actors,
Yeah.
socialize. But Mike, I did,
Yeah.
and we became good friends. And so, yeah, now there's so many people doing it. So but even though there's so many people doing it, even in those days, you don't really record with other people very often.
Yeah.
90% of the recording is alone, and you happen to like pass the ships in the night in the studio kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those things in which whenever you're looking at like the list to try to find people or do something, it's like, the same 10 names get popped up every single time during that period. And
Yeah.
then I felt like at 90, 96, 97, there was a whole bunch of new people that started to, well, not a whole bunch, but at least a couple new people started to come through. And
That's when I came in, 96, I
yeah.
think 95, 96.
Yeah, I asked this to Walter, so I'm gonna change the wording since
Okay.
he taught me a couple of things here. Um, and I guess you've already kind of answered that. So, of course, you were part of multiple agencies. Well, Walter said you could have been part of multiple ones, and that was kind of a
Sure.
unique
I
culture
have
at the
like
time.
20 agents.
Yeah, that was one thing that I didn't even. I think a lot of people were unaware of when I did the interview with him that someone could be with multiple different agencies, and that could be 10, 20, could be quite a few. So,
Japanese have to use one agent.
yeah, it's one of
Japanese voice
those.
talent have to use one agent only.
Yeah,
But gaijin foreigners like us, we can use many.
yeah. So it's one of those things I have to change the wording of this a little bit on the spot. And I guess you've already answered the second part of this. But did you make any, of course, other than Michael, did you make any friends like between the agencies? Like, for example, with so many games having similar English speaking people, voice actors,
Huh?
did you eventually make any bonds or friends with any of them? Like in terms of like work buddies,
Yeah.
more or less? Like were there any that, you just saw and just said, hey, you're also back with me? It's like one of those things that was quite common.
Yeah. One of my buddies that I've actually had drinks with, he's been to
Yeah.
my place before and stuff. Peter Von Gom.
Hmm.
You should interview him. He's really good.
Yeah,
He's very
I'm
knowledgeable.
gonna get through the squad and collecting the pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah, his last name Vongomm. He's great. He does everything. Actually, for the Olympics, he was the announcer for the beginning of the Olympics
Wow.
and everything. Olympics, and he does a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of game. We've done a lot of games together. And he's a really cool guy. Collects motorcycles and things. So he'd be interesting to interview.
Hmm.
But he became a buddy. But probably the friend I've been closest to for the longest time is Lisa Wilkerson.
Hmm.
I've known her for over 30 years. She was she played my sister in Virtua Fighter. I was Jackie
Hmm.
Bryant. She was Sarah Bryant. She was Nina Williams in Tekken. She was Joy in Shenmue.
Hmm.
Uh, she's good in Shenmue. Corey Marshall, who played Ryo, is a
Yeah.
buddy of mine. Who stayed at my house for a while when he was recording. And Yeah. Like I say, we're ships that pass in the night usually,
Yep.
but sometimes you just kind of, you kind of make a connection with somebody and you say, you want to grab a drink or something.
Yep.
And you kind of share your lives a little bit more than just passing by in the
Yeah,
studio.
exactly.
Um, but yeah, we're all freelance, so we
Yep.
don't work in an office or anything. So,
Yep.
I can go years without seeing somebody.
Yeah, it was one of those things in which it had been speculated from a bunch of things that because if you go to there's a website called Behind the Voice Actors,
Yeah,
and
I've
they
been
can
there.
and they collate a bunch of the roles, and they put like works with together. It's like I think Ryan and Jeff, you've had like 15 roles with, or like 14. It's a ridiculous amount
Oh, we've done
compared
those
to now.
games. We've
Yeah.
both been in that many games in the same game together.
Yeah, it's one of those things in which it's over time, I think voice actors nowadays kind of just get you know, thrown into a bunch of different stuff, and they don't really get to meet like the same people over and over again. Of course, it's a different environment nowadays from what it was back then, but in terms of you don't really see that many crossovers. So originally my question was, oh, were you guys a part of like a small group? And of course you were of course voice actors and it's paid and they'll choose the roles,
Yeah,
but
but
were they
we
like, yeah,
weren't a
yeah,
collective or anything like that. We were just part of a small group because we were the only ones doing it.
exactly. Yeah,
You know?
that was kind of the point I was wanting to get across, but also that definitely the last point of have you made friends with people. That was the important one that I wanted to ask because a lot of people
And and one more thing,
yeah,
we're all foreigners in Japan.
yeah.
So we're the gaijin. We stick out. We're
Yeah.
different. Especially 30 years ago, not that many people were
Yeah.
doing it, and so uh, we kind of bonded a little bit
Mm.
more. I guess we saw each other as a little bit more as like comrades,
Mm.
and we were all kind of starting to do it. It was
Yeah.
all kind of new for a lot of us as well. But now we've all been doing it like 30 years, and it's old hat.
Yeah.
There's so many foreigners in Japan now, so we don't really feel the need to kind of be as cohesive as we were
Yeah.
before.
Yeah, and just quickly in between here, I do see the time is running out because we're on the free plan. I will send you an updated link, probably in probably 7 minutes, and then you just join that, and it'll be another 45, and that should be good.
Okay, cool.
So I'll just ask you something pretty short. Um, God, there's two of them which really cross over, and I hate to ask them because I don't want you repeating yourself.
That's
Um,
okay. Whatever you got.
So I was going to say, with people's love of the characters you play, how much influence do you think you have over a character if it's perceived well or not?
Um, we don't really have a lot of say about the
Yeah.
character in the script. Um, we sometimes correct the English when 30 years ago,
Yep.
20, 30 years ago is a lot of really bad English. And so sometimes we'd really just have to say, you can't say that.
Yeah,
Like
I guess I'll
wrong.
add in this one question that will
But
kind of probably have more context. What makes a character, the writing or the voice? Which is kind of what I'm getting at with that last one. Is it
okay.
you putting as much effort as possible and overtaking that? I've heard so many different responses to this. That's one of the things. I think it's quite a unique question to ask. Um,
I would have to say, I think three parts are equally important.
yes.
The visuals, the voice, and the script.
Yep.
Because you're looking at the visuals and you're hearing the voice.
Hmm.
And the voice has to connect to the visual. You
Yep.
can't have a big guy with a little kind of weenie voice or anything.
Yep.
And then if the dialogue is stupid or
Hmm.
unnatural or something, then you just kind of naturally have an aversion
Yep.
to that. You go, hey, that's weird. So I think if all three are top notch, this really
Yep.
clicks. And the best characters are always when all three blend together perfectly.
Yep.
So the characters is more believable, and I think the player can relate to them more and enjoy them.
Yeah, I had interestingly enough, so I've had three people, including you, answer that one question, and I've gotten from the newer voice actor that he believes it is the full on the writing. The voice can really you can have multiple different talented actors that can do a voice, but it's always the writing that comes down to it. I had Walter, which he said it's probably the voice, since although there is bad scripts out there, if the voice at least is convincing enough or fits with the character, it can work at times in some
Yeah.
instances. And of course, you're like, yeah, it's equal parts of what it makes up. So it's
I
kind
think
of
three equal
unique, yeah.
parts. You know, um, uh, uh, yeah. I mean, the script is what everything starts from.
Yeah.
Everything starts from the
It's
script.
three
So
different perspectives, which I like. It's three
yeah, so
unique
I think
angles on it.
yeah, and I think the voice actor can do a better job if the script is good.
Oh,
you
definitely,
know,
definitely.
and if it's not, we kind of like this. Really, do I have to say that?
Yeah.
And so I guess they work together in that way.
Mm. Yeah, that's one of the key things which I try to take away from everyone. I try to make my questions as like I don't want to go in and go ask, hey, here's an entire Shenmue talk because you've done that a billion times, or here's an entire talk on one thing. So I kind of like that umbrella. So asking these questions I think is quite unique because it's more about you rather than just the
Yeah,
characters.
I've done so many of these. It's nice to
Yeah,
get new questions.
I've had a well, like a Twitter relationship. I'll say that. There's a voice actor called Mike Pullock, which is the
I
voice
know.
of Doctor Eggman and some other people from the Sonic franchise,
Hmm.
and he's quite verbal on Twitter, like in the nicest way.
Hmm.
And the thing is that he gets thrown, like even non-interviews, just on Twitter from random people, the most like what do you think your character would do in this situation? It's like I don't write him. Is kind of his response. I'm not him. And I have so much respect for him since he puts up with all these people saying, he's not that character. He's not that. He can't say those things because everyone's like, oh, could you do the
I
voice of
disagree.
this?
I disagree. You can ask me what would Ren do in this situation. I know my characters.
Yeah.
Um, I am not my characters.
Hmm.
They are independently
Yeah.
autonomous beings, and I they live inside. The voice lives inside me,
Yeah.
and I've often been asked characters, "What do you think like he would do in this situation?"
Hmm.
And I can give an answer. He wouldn't care. He would do this and then kick his ass, kind of thing.
Hmm.
I can give you an answer because
Yeah.
I get close to my characters.
Yeah.
And I believe I am the character is
Hmm.
inside me, just comes out to play.
Yeah.
And I said that recently. We were at a game con,
Yeah.
and they said, "Can you do a little of this voice, or what happened when you
Yeah.
did this or this?" And recently they had a big Virtua Fighter. What was it called? Virtua Fighter something challenge or something.
Yeah.
It was a huge international kind of game competition.
Hmm.
It was like $1 million prize and all this stuff. And I did some promo for it,
Hmm.
a couple of spots as Jackie,
Hmm.
saying new lines and new things and
Yeah.
using my own words and everything. And they say, "Was it fun to do Jackie again?" I said, "Yeah, it was fun to meet him, to hang out with
Yeah.
him again, because to me he just comes out to play.
Hmm.
I feel like an empath, like at a seance
Yeah.
or something. And and so whenever I'm doing Ren, I did a mod for like
Yeah.
Shenmue
Yeah. I
3.
saw that.
I did the whole thing for free. Everybody did that for free. Nobody
Yeah.
got paid. All the technicians and
Yeah.
everybody. And that took a while.
Hmm.
So I did a whole video game in my apartment studio for free, and
Hmm.
everybody else the same, because we just love the game.
Yeah.
We love the characters. And so for me, it was really fun to hang out with Ren,
Hmm.
because he is not me. He just comes out through me. And
Yeah.
so
It's
as I'm doing Ren, I kind of just like I said, it's like a seance. I just kind of become Ren.
Yeah, it's definitely. I think it comes down to and I have massive respect for that, and I definitely agree. I feel like it's as I said before, it's seeing different perspectives. I feel like I asked kind of the similar thing to the newer voice actor, just for reference in the conversation. He was like, I feel like whenever I'm doing a voice, he's doing more of an impression of what someone else would see the character as, so more for the players rather than
Okay.
him. So it's that weird kind of way of saying this character is a being. I'm voicing them. I'm not really them. That's kind of where it goes. I feel like the voice actor I was talking about before, he's kind of half in between. Like he does give out like, responses and stuff, but I feel like his perspective is I'm not kind of in the writer's room, and he doesn't want to do anything that's gonna like lose him a job because he's very current in a lot of things. And I feel like you're kind of just like, oh hell yeah, I'll just have fun with it. And I feel like that's kind of the best way of going with it because
I feel like a voice actor.
yeah, that's the best way of saying it.
I don't feel like just a narrator. I don't feel like just a voice. I feel like a voice actor when I'm doing video games, and so I try to really become the character.
Yeah. And I'll quickly cut you off of there since we can. I'll start over the. I'll start the thing again. I don't want you to get knocked off halfway in between.
That's okay. That it?
Yeah. Okay. There we go. I was scared for like a minute there, since it's like it's that 1 minute in between that it's don't know what's gonna happen.
Sure, I got it.
Yeah.
Well, like I was saying, excuse me. For the most interesting characters we do, they also have a backstory.
Yep.
And you guys know that because the players love it. Jackie was a race car driver and he got in an accident and then he had to drop out. And then, his sister did this. And, I'm like, I don't even know these things. I'm the character. People are telling me, but he did that. I'm like, really? So it's interesting.
You're like, oh yeah, exactly. I knew that the entire time.
They give us, at the beginning, they usually just give us lines to read and we read them. But if they're good, they give us the lines, but they also give us a backstory and say, well, this is his motivation and this is what he wants to do. And he's a nice guy, but he's kind of an asshole sometimes.
Yeah.
Or something. So we can adjust kind of, we can be a nice guy, but we can put a little sarcasm in.
Yeah.
And so that helps us to really adjust the style of voices and the pacing and the rhythm and the tone. And then we can kind of really feel it because I think with voice acting as well, we're not on camera. So, the voice has to be very expressive. And it's hard to be expressive or have emotion or something when you don't really feel anything.
Exactly.
So I think if you can kind of get into the character a little bit more and kind of feel his pain or something.
Yeah.
Or excitement, and feel the same excitement for the same thing, then that it flows into the lines better as well.
Yeah, so I mean, I'll kind of flow this into this one. This might take you back a little bit. From when you first started voice acting to now, how do you think the environment of doing voice work has changed? So in terms of saying, from your first role to now, what is drastically different between either the studio, how you do it? Like what's some of the things that you found? Is it better or worse?
I think the directing is sometimes better now because I think they're speaking English more.
Yeah.
They're working with foreigners more. It's a more experienced medium.
Yeah.
And I think other than that, it's pretty much the same.
Yeah.
You get lines, studio. If you're lucky, you get some visuals.
Yes.
But most of the time, we just do, we don't even know the story or the situation. We're just doing random lines alone, and then they edit it all together later. So sometimes we're, if they gave me a line that says, oh yeah, now is that, oh yeah, or is that, oh yeah, or oh yeah, fuck it, what's the situation? If he's pissed off, I can't say, oh yeah, he has to be, oh yeah,
Yeah.
So you got to know what's going on, but they don't always explain it that way. So when you see, especially some of the older games, when the tone sounds a little weird, like why is he so excited or why is he angry? That doesn't make sense. That's why. I think it's getting better now. Um, I think in the future or now, AI, which will be the future, is going to take a big bite out of
Hmm.
work like mine because you don't need people. You don't have to pay people. You don't have to pay studios. You don't have to pay engineers,
Hmm.
sound mixers. You don't have to pay a lot. You can just type your words into something, put a tone
Yeah.
on it, you can choose your character, good guy, sarcastic,
Hmm.
and it'll create everything. Um, and I think that's going to really change the industry. The writer's strike recently
Yeah.
tried to put a bit of a halt on
Hmm.
too extreme enthusiasm on that. Um, but yeah, I think the future is going to be a lot of AI. And
Yeah.
also, like in the past, 30, 40 years ago, voice actors did everything,
Hmm.
and you look back to like amazing people from like the 40s and the 50s, like Mel Blanc,
Hmm.
did all the Looney Tunes and all of those things. He did like 400 different characters. He's the greatest voice actor of all time, Mel
Hmm.
Blanc. And there's nobody like that anymore, really. Seth MacFarlane is really good.
Yeah.
Uh, and some people are very good like that. What's his name from The Simpsons?
Oh. Oh God.
Does
I
everybody.
think it starts with a D or something.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah.
He's also a regular actor on camera as well. He's amazing. Um, but nowadays, if you go see a Disney or Pixar or anything, you're gonna hear movie stars. You're gonna hear, you know, Meryl Streep doing a shot at it, or somebody, a famous movie star's voice
Yeah.
is going to be doing the character because people go, "Oh, that's that movie star. I know that voice," and
Yeah.
it kind of the cred level goes up a bit. Um, and so voice actors are cut out of
Yeah.
those as well. So I would say 30 or 40 years ago, there was a lot more work for voice
Hmm.
actors than there is today.
Yeah.
And I think in the future, it's going to be even less.
Hmm. So I'm gonna go off of a quote here with a question. Now, kind of a semi-topical thing that we're on before. So there's a voice actor called David Nolan. He
Okay.
is, I think he's based in the US.
Right.
And he commented when he was asked about, is this character him or not? He said, "Here's the problem with figuring out which characters I played. The analog voice tapes were often recorded without visuals. It wasn't until digital video processing came into the mix that we as voice artists were able to see the games. We were given drawings, of course, and directions by the director as to what they wanted to be a part of, but nothing more. In some cases, we were doing 2 to 3 games a day without the actual titles that we used in the game came out.
Yeah.
You
They
can
often
see,
don't tell us the
yeah,
titles. We don't,
you,
and they sometimes never tell us the titles.
yeah, and he said you can see the dilemma of figuring out what we did. Yes, so
Yeah.
that's one of the quotes he did. What's your opinion on that and kind of your
I
experience with what
agree.
you've been given, like in a studio? Like for example, I mean, you've probably answered this a billion times, but with Shenmue, I mean, I'll say Shenmue 2. Did you get given like what the character would look like? Like what
Yeah.
did you? Okay,
Shenmue 2 was good. Um,
one of the
not
better
every
examples.
that's a good one. Not every scene was already,
Yeah,
drawn out yet. Um, but uh, working on that game, a lot of that already was. Most games, there are no visuals,
yeah,
even today. They'll give you a drawing of the character on a piece of paper, or just give you a sentence saying he's a big guy or
yeah.
he's angry or something. Shenmue is 2 was really fun
Hmm.
because that was probably one of my longest recording jobs.
Hmm.
With Shenmue 1 and Shenmue 2, because those are marathon
Yeah.
games. And Shenmue 2 was really fun because I like playing Ren. Ren was fun.
Hmm.
And so Ren had a bit of an attitude. And the guy I was with, Corey,
Hmm.
played Ryo.
Yeah.
And that's one of the only times I've been actually in the studio with another person recording together.
Okay.
And because Corey and I had a lot of like dialogue back and
Yeah.
forth. And I remember for several scenes in the game, we were handcuffed together.
Yep, yep. I'm
Did you
basically
get to that
I
part?
think I'm 2 hours after that part. So I did
Okay.
see that was pretty humorous, and I did I feel like I don't know why, but between your guys' voices, I mean Rio really was standout in Shenmue 1. In Shenmue
Uh-huh.
2, the moment your character came in, he kind of just stole the show for I
Yeah,
think a lot
he's
of
kind of like
people.
comic
Yeah.
relief, you know.
Yeah. It's one of those things
But
in
I
which
want,
Rio is so like not uptight, but so like stressed about getting one thing done that your character's like, just shut up. I want the money.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Where's the
But
money in this?
I think there was a good counterpart because
Yeah,
Rio's like just like really serious, just like, look, I got to go find this guy. He killed my
yeah,
father. I got to kick his ass. I got to kill him,
yeah,
basically. And how do I do that? Where do I go?
hmm,
Don't get in my way. I'm very stoic.
yeah,
Um, Ren is just like, hey, give me money, I'll kill anyone you want.
yeah. I
You
think
know,
also Rio is one of those characters in which I felt so much because I watched so I played I think 2 hours of it and I realized I could not get through this. So I watched like a fan made they put all the cutscenes together, like all the motion, all the stuff, and then
like
they also did
highlights.
yeah, but they did everything, and then the gameplay that needed to be shown, they got like an
Uh-huh.
expert person to do it, and they
Uh-huh.
put it together. I think it's like a 8 hour video, and I watched like 6 of the 8 hours, so I got through a large chunk of it. It was one of those things in which whenever I saw Rio just walking around, he'd always walk into the most like obviously, obviously trap or like obviously just weird situations. It's one of those
Uh-huh.
things in which yeah, I think Ren just kind of I feel like he's self-aware of the
Mhm.
situation of the game because he's just like he always admits that Rio is just such he's stupid in the way that he just walks into everything that's wrong. Like he has like
Yeah.
of course he has no knowledge of anything, but it's like all common sense from that first game just gets thrown out completely.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I guess it
And
makes sense
Ren
because he's in a
doesn't
foreign
sugarcoat
area.
that
Yeah,
too, right? Ren's always telling him how stupid and weak he
yeah.
is.
It's such a I've never been so I don't typically enjoy single player games because this is kind of off the topic, but because I never feel like you can connect with the characters nowadays. They're so artificially made, and I feel like back then there was so much more spirit. And that's why I
Mm,
also like the voice actors, right? Because in my opinion, kind of answering my own question before, I feel like it's particularly the people that kind of make the characters
mhm.
because the writing can be as horrible as possible, right? But then
Yeah.
the gameplay could be fun, and if the voices are goofy or done really well, then that's kind of what matters to me. And I feel like meeting the voice actors behind that is definitely the unique experience to have because you can talk about your experiences, but it was one of those things of just uniqueness. I guess it's a hard thing to say, but you can kind of get
Well,
where
I
I'm going
think
with that. Yeah,
it was kind of more analog than digital, if that makes any
yeah,
sense. It was more holistic from the heart, kind
yeah.
of sweating out the characters. Whereas today, I think everything is very refined,
Mm,
and sometimes you don't get that raw edge to it,
mm.
possibly.
Yeah, I found
Is that what you mean?
yeah, I found the like characters in the game like Wong, which was the kid, just to be really it was so unique the game. Like I saw it and I was like, oh, I'm not going to enjoy this. Although I'm going to be talking to one of the main voice actors, I'm not going to enjoy this. I sit down and I'm
Uh,
just like, oh yeah, this is pretty cool. And I'm sitting there and it turns out I'd been there for like 4 hours, and it was like 2 a.m. at the time. I was like, oh, yeah, this is pretty good.
that's the thing, especially about a lot of the fighting games. You're not really in another world.
Yep.
It's just you're round one, ready, fight, kind of thing.
Mm.
But Shenmue, you're in a totally different world. You're in
Yep.
Japan. You're in China. You know, and it'll take you like 20 hours to finish the game.
Yep.
And Suzuki-san really wanted to make it immersive
Mm.
and wanted to make everything you see or touch have life to it.
Yep.
And so a lot of people who have played Shenmue 1 or 2, especially Shenmue 1, which was in Japan, like in Yokosuka down by the base,
Yeah.
um, they make a sojourn to Japan, and they go to Dobuita Street, and they buy a can of Coke from that same Coke
Yeah.
machine, and they drink it the same way that Rio does. And a lot of them have come and visited me.
Hmm.
So they contact me and they say, hey, I got to come to Japan. I feel like I've already been in Japan with Shenmue 1
Yeah.
and I got to see those places. And the graphics were like groundbreaking. It was amazing. Shenmue 1 at the time was the most expensive video game ever made. It's in the Guinness Book of World Records at the time.
Well, you can see where the money's gone, which is good. I mean,
Yeah.
they haven't wasted it.
Yeah.
Like I've seen other projects in which it's so much money being put into one thing and kind of pops out, and you're just like, oh yeah, that was an alright experience, and you just forget about it. It's like I still remember some of the lines from Shenmue 2, and I've only watched that. It's one of those things of that. You can see where the money's gone in. Even like how everyone moves and how it looks for the time. It's such a unique game because it was ahead of its time in a lot of areas.
Yeah, and it's not real high action or anything. It's more just like it's like traveling. It's like
It
exploring.
breaks a lot of. I saw someone's comment on one of the YouTube on that YouTube video I was watching, which put everything together. It was like if you were to take Shenmue and make that today, people would just find it wrong because it doesn't follow any of the conventions that modern media has set up today.
Yeah, it's a low key. Just play it at home. You don't have to fight. I mean, there's fighting in it. If you like fighting, there's a lot of good fighting.
Yeah,
it's Yu Suzuki, so it's got some great engines and great fighting. But it's there's and the Shenmue fans. The Shenmue 1 was dead for it finished, and then for 15 years they didn't make Shenmue 2, and they only made Shenmue 2 because of a Kickstarter.
well, I think that's Shenmue 3. I think we're talking about here.
Oh, I'm sorry, Shenmue 3.
Yeah.
Shenmue 3. That was a Kickstarter that came out because of the fans, because of the family. They're so dedicated. I've never met any video game fans ever like the Shenmue fans.
Yeah.
And they put out magazines and have conferences, and they all meet up in different countries, and they're all friends. And I call it the Shenmue family. And it really is. And I feel like an uncle in the family. And like I said, I've had people come to Japan. We go out for drinks and dinner. I take them out for interesting Japanese food and do their sojourn around, and people keep in touch, and it's just wonderful. Sometimes people think like otaku are kind of crazy.
Yeah.
I love otaku. I think otaku are great. I wish I were otaku at something because I said to somebody the other day, otaku are great because from the moment they wake up in the morning to go to sleep at night, there's something they can think about, look forward to, and be interested in.
Definitely.
And I think that's really cool. And so there is really, excuse me, with many video games, but especially Shenmue, really seems like a family. And that's what brought it back after 15 years. So it is a really different kind of game. If you're watching this and you haven't played Shenmue before, check it out. But start with Shenmue 1.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Shenmue 2 gives you... It runs the entire first game down in like 3 minutes at the beginning. It just completely goes over it.
2 is great, yeah. And it's you're real. You're with him. He's on a quest. He's on a journey.
Yeah.
And you meet these other interesting characters along the way, and you fight some, and you make friends with some. And so it's more like real life. It's more like a movie. It's more like you were actually in the game.
Yeah.
And like you were saying, for like Shenmue 3, beautiful. The visuals, the scenes, the Japan, and the music is amazing as well. And it's just you can just put it on and just watch, the fall foliage and the wind blowing through the trees and the river or the cityscape or something with the music. And that you don't even need to play the game. That alone is beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things of beauty Shenmue that it is. I guess there was a deleted point because I don't want to go too much into it, but I guess I'll
Sure.
just run off now. Why do you think Shenmue as a series has kind of held on to its prowess over time? Because I mean, for such an old franchise, and of course getting a third game, which had very mixed reception
Mhm.
at launch, and I feel like has kind of kept like that. Why do you think that people still like contact yourself and others and kind of still enjoy the games over that time? What do you think that makes Shenmue a unique franchise? Do you think, from
I
your
think, like I was
experience?
just saying
Yeah,
before, it's kind of like a family of fans
yeah,
who contact each other
yeah,
and they keep that going. Um, and I think it's different than just like, okay, let's fight a bit and then put down the game,
yeah,
and then let's fight the next guy and then put down the game, like Tekken or
yeah,
Virtual Fight or anything like that. But it's a story, it's a movie, So if you like the first movie, you want to see the sequel, and
yeah,
then you want to see the third one, and you want to see the fourth one. It's like if you're a fan of Fast and Furious, because
mm,
there are like 10 of them now,
yeah,
you know. So if there's an actual story that's going on, and this one is especially nice because it's one story that's continuing.
yeah,
It's not just like they're gonna fight. It's not just like what am I thinking? Like it's not like Beverly Hills Cop 2 or 3 or something like that, where
yeah,
first one is this story, the second one is as an amusement park, and the third one is this one.
yeah,
It's not as much like that because it's the same quest going the whole time. So you kind of really want to get to the end because you've invested so much time into the previous games that you want to see it go. You feel like, come on, I gotta go. And I think that's interesting.
yeah.
And that's what sets it apart in that way. Um, and yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, and I'll
It's
probably just run through one last thing and then I'll just have a chat
yeah,
with you quickly after.
sure.
What do you think, after all this time, has been your favorite role in terms of your experience around it? So, for example, I know Shenmue you've enjoyed,
Mhm.
but has there been any other roles in which like have stood the test of time? Like that was a fun recording experience, or that was a fun thing that I've done. Has there any like has stood out to the test of time? I guess.
I would have to say all of my three characters on Shenmue,
Yeah.
Ren, Zan, and Fukusan, had a lot of lines.
Hmm.
It's a long movie, long recording. So
Yeah.
I had a lot of lines, so I could really kind of get into the character more. So it was more like acting in a movie than in a
Yeah.
video game. Um, and so I would have to set that apart because it's just there was more to do, so it's more fun
Yeah.
and it's more of me. Um, Other things, Jackie, Paul Phoenix, those are kind of fun characters. Um, Other than that, a lot of it is just you go into the studio and you read the
Yeah.
lines and you leave. And if it's that kind of role, it doesn't really have as much impact or,
Yes.
you know, doesn't last as long in me. I'm looking down my list of things here from IMDb. Oh, here we have Planet of the Apes. I just found it,
Oh
2001.
wow.
Um, yeah, yeah. I don't know. I guess those are the
Yeah.
main
Yeah.
ones, and I guess the main ones are the ones that people ask me to do for them.
Mm.
Sometimes I'll do like a favor for somebody if they can. Hey, can you read this for me,
Yeah.
like for my website or something? Yeah, okay. And so I don't charge on that stuff.
Yeah.
And the smaller ones are only one off. I don't
Yeah.
remember as much.
Okay, thank you for taking the interview. It was great being able to speak to you. Is there any last words you have for fans and those alike?
Um, yeah, just I'm glad that you're watching this, that you enjoy the games I was in, and hopefully you got something out of it. I hope I can do some more, and you can play them. Keep playing, have fun, um, and yeah, I really appreciate the support as well. It's nice to know that you're appreciated,
Yeah.
that and that what you're doing kind of means something to somebody. I've had players, younger players, say they really enjoyed it. I've had older players
Yeah.
who played, the games from the '90s and the 2000s when they were in high school,
Hmm.
junior high school, and they said, you were a big part. Your voice was a big part of my childhood, and I was like, wow, I feel kind of like responsible somehow or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
And but that was a great compliment. I've got that a couple times. Your voice was a big part of my
Mm.
childhood, and that really made me feel like I'm actually doing something important. And
Yeah.
so thank you. So I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing without people who are playing the games. So thank you
Hmm.
very much.
I know I can relay that message. I could probably double down and say there's been a lot of people who I was in contact with that are like, yeah, he's absolutely awesome. He's a great dude.
Oh,
And
thanks.
yeah, so I can relay and say add a couple more to that and say, this dude's amazing.
Oh, good.
I can
Well,
definitely
that's
see that.
fun. Yeah. And if you're ever in Japan, look me up. I'm always good for a drink.
Thank you, thank
I'm
you.
right. I'm right in Tokyo, so send me an email. My contact info is on
Yeah,
my website. So
yeah, I might be coming over there sooner than later. I'll say that
yeah,
much.
I'm
I'll
on
give
the
it.
website.
I'm giving a little hint to a couple of people that I've been suspecting I might pop over there.
Good, 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 good. You'd love it. I mean, Japan's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully, you have a great day, and thank you.
Okay, buddy. You too. Take care. Look forward to talking to you again.
Yep, 100%.
Thanks, everybody. Have a
See ya.
good day. Bye bye.